have got a little panel actually. So we've got 4 people heading up. We're going to be talking about technology, AI and people working in Symphony to deliver enhanced building experiences. So we've got Ryan Stocks, Head of Service Delivery, Andrew Bothma, Managing Director, Energy and Smart Engineering at Bellrock, and Ruman Sahota, Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships at LGIM.
So we're here talking today, I think, on behalf of Bellrock Group. I think there's a lot of conversation here around AI and the application within real estate or FM. And I think the angle that we're trying to display here today is just really going through a live case study over, is it 3 years? Roughly 3 years. So it's been a really big journey, going back where you perhaps thought about what good would look like, and now I looked at some of the metrics that we achieved over just the past year, and it is pretty impressive. So I'd like to essentially moderate the panel today and go through some of the motions. And I'll start with you, I guess, Ruman, to ask, within LNG, how do you see AI? And, you have various different industrial, office, residential stock, and how you look at it, and specifically from a Bellrock perspective, when you look at how you can implement innovation initially, how did you look at it, and what was your expectation at the start?
Yep, thank you. Lovely to meet everyone. Ruman Sahota from LGIM. Just before we go into that, it probably makes sense just to give a little bit of background into where this journey started. So I work in the asset management team along with all of our asset managers, and probably around 3 to 5 years ago, a lot of the asset managers were coming to me with the challenge of, right, Ruman, we're getting too many reactive jobs across our portfolio. We haven't got enough data, enough visibility of how our spaces are being operated. How can we do that? And so over the last 3 years, a project called Project Symphony has taken place, where we take the data feeds from the BMS, IoT, bring them into a data platform called Demand Logic, which is a visualization platform to really understand what trends are happening in our portfolio from an energy perspective, but also a comfort perspective. And off the back of that, be able to really understand what's happening, be able to put triggers and alerts into place, and then have a conversation on a daily or weekly basis with both the site teams, the FM teams, and our BMS consultants and our M&E consultants to understand what's going on remotely. That's had a lot of good results, I think, and the next stage is AI, but probably just before I go into that, is it worth, Ryan, you jumping in?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've learned during our, different programs that we run is technology, like you mentioned at Demand Logic, but there's many others, solve, I don't know, maybe 25% of the problem. And the rest is people, process. And this is the thing that stood out for me significantly in the Symphony model, is how you handled the people in the process part. So Ryan, I don't know if you wanted to give a bit of an overview from when you started and how that worked.
Hi guys, I just want to start saying it's great to hear another northern accent, so yeah, made me feel a lot more comfortable coming down to London. So I'm the account director for Bellrock, so there's around 50 of us who work on the LNG account across around 250 assets, which are totally mixed use, as we've covered. So when we started this journey, it was very much probably a bit of a learning curve, right, that we've all been through of it's information overload, and you try and get as much information in front of your engineers and hope that they make the right decision, and you quickly find out that it's quite daunting for them. They don't understand what you're trying to achieve. You don't understand how that we're trying to make them do it. And I think we had to probably take a bit of a step back initially, right? So the biggest thing we've had to do is get the various supply chain partners we work with across the country on board with what we're trying to achieve and explain the benefits of why we're doing it. And then start in terms of daily briefings with our teams. So in each region of the country, we've got certain clusters of different M&E partners, BMS consultants and technical teams. And we're really on the morning call. So there's half an hour each morning, and you have the actionable insights from all the data feeds, and you discuss with them as a team what your priorities are. And then you try and understand what the impact to our occupiers are and what we're trying to focus on in terms of energy, our comfort, our air quality, or a blend of all of those. So as part of that process, we're going through the actionable insights, you're making changes and tracking it on the system. And I think the huge part of it is tracking through when there's actually a job that's required. versus just a conversation and a remote change. So it's things that you'll have all seen already. It's nothing kind of groundbreaking in that respect, but how you get the people all working together from different companies with all that data to have the actual output that we're all trying to work towards has been the ultimate challenge over the last 3 years, and it's something that I think we're very close to of delivering on. So again, without just reading from the slides, the huge, from an occupier perspective, and I'm hoping Ruman can cover this from LNG's perspective, we work in service charge world, so it's how you avoid the call outs. So if you can fix something remotely, that's the starting point. And then from an occupier perspective, we're trying to fix things before they realise, but then make sure we communicate back with the insights, what we've done and why to our occupiers.
Yeah, I was going to say, so traditionally when people look at these sorts of these interventions, you would focus largely on occupier experience, but also the ROI is focused on energy savings, perhaps for more efficient assets that you're running. However, when I looked at this results, it's nearly 50% of it is actually labour efficiencies, right? So even though you see that as it sounds like still manual intervention with the daily calls or the weekly calls or whatever, do you see some of that automating better in the future with some of the engagement you have? Because we've got a platform called Concerta that hosts a lot of this asset data. How do you see some of that evolving over the coming months compared to what you've achieved here from a labour efficiency and energy saving?
So for me, we really want our engineers to feel like they control the buildings and we're not taking away decisions from them. We want to make sure we overlay that with the right amount of insight and data. So before we actually do anything in terms of automation, we want the engineering team to understand why we're doing that and the impact to our occupiers and really make them feel like they own the buildings. Again, we've looked at several different options in terms of automation, but for me personally, the minute we start to take those decisions away from the people on the ground who are running those assets and understand those assets and maintain those assets, it will mean that they probably won't feel part of that journey. So it's making sure they've got the right tools and the right insights to be able to then track through the changes that we're making. From an energy perspective, it's been fantastic. So I think we've now got the results to explain to new starters and people who go through the training academy the reasons we're trying to do this, because we've got such fantastic results. But again, it's making them feel like it's probably similar to what James said in the previous session of it's a tool in addition to what we're already doing with the great engineers. It's not to replace them, it's not to automate everything from a BMS perspective, it's to make them be able to control the buildings better and smarter and have a better environment for the occupiers.
And just to add to that, so from an asset manager perspective, probably the biggest thing for them is just, number one, getting the data on it. So they didn't have the data before, so how can they actually understand it in quite a meaningful way in terms of comfort, energy, maintenance, and that's where demand logic and then the team's insight comes into play. And then just predictability. So if they're avoiding these reactive works, they can actually do some asset management, whether it's, I don't know, on a lift or another piece of plant and equipment, and actually have better forecasting ability on their budgets.
So, so some of the metrics then that you look at from an occupier perspective, because I know you do the air score, air rated score. There's various different things that you look at or you've implemented. It's quite innovative from an industry perspective. So how are you guys looking at that on a monthly or quarterly or annually basis? What does good look like for you from a metrics perspective?
Yep. So we're always constantly looking at it. So that's probably one of the best examples, air quality. So that was through a company called Air Rated, where they are constantly looking at the latest air quality science and research in the market to understand what good looks like. And so based on that, we'll constantly, within Demand Logic and Concerto, change change what those benchmarks look like. So if, for example, 1 month there's new science or new research that says actually the PM 2.5 should be a different level, we can adjust the triggers based on that. And that happens across lots of different areas, not only air quality.
So Ryan, what's next then for
question
for the team?
For me, it's we've gamified it, which was kind of the starting point once we got people using the tools that we had rolled out and got them on board with the journey. So once you get people bought into it, for me, from an AI perspective, it's now the output of what we have done. We can communicate through AI in terms of, again, similar to what James said in terms of the actionable insights. you can then put them in front of your occupiers and your client in terms of the asset managers and the fund managers and say, here are the things that are important. Here's the output of what we have done in terms of the interventions and the different impacts they've had. And then from our selfish perspective, it's making our occupiers never want to leave the buildings they're in because they feel like they're being maintained well, they're saving energy, but it's balanced with air quality and it's a comfortable, productive environment for their staff. From a feedback perspective, something probably we've not covered is we've got 2 routes of feedback. You've got QR codes that are across all of the office assets where people can scan. We take the insights, then we analyse that through AI, that gets shared with the building management teams, and then that influences our PMR discussions in terms of what CapEx is going into those assets.
So one thing that we sort of scanned over in the presentation slides, I might want to pull us back into quickly, is just to highlight. So the numbers here that I saw, one was the 404,000 avoided energy costs, and then you've got the 527. Over how many properties is that, and was that most of last year then, the results?
I think, yeah, so this is 2024. We have 28, I believe, office assets that are on the programme now. Started again with just a trial in Manchester, then it's rolled out as we've got other people on board with the journey. I think probably one thing to mention on this is, as we've spoke about with getting people along on the journey with us, it's not as easy as just saying this is happening, embrace it, and the outcome's fantastic. We've had to demonstrate locally in certain areas what the benefits are. There are certain asset managers and funds who probably straight away jumped on board with it, going, that's cool, that's fantastic. There's a lot of people who were quite nervous, and we've had to really take them on that journey and explain to them what we're trying to do and why. So yeah, for me, we're quite proud of now we're across 20 offices, 28 of the major offices, and it's continuing that journey now with the people who have seen the benefits elsewhere and rolling it out there. And then we'll start to look at industrial assets and retail, which will be another challenge in itself.
I was going to ask that as a final closing statement, because the majority of this is office stock, right? So do you see the application for industrial relevant? Because it's a slightly different tenant experience from an asset owner perspective, right?
Yep, no, definitely. Offices was definitely the easiest one, just given kind of the location of our assets, the budgets involved over there. But I think retail, industrial is definitely next. As you said, some asset managers are more keen to do it first, and then others will follow on. And that's definitely where our retail teams have now got to.
Brilliant. Well, that's it. Thank you.